Vitya Diaries Chapter 8, 2nd place. Vitya, I told you not to do those jumps. Coach was referring to the counterclockwise toe loops. I was trying. The setup was slow, so I could concentrate on mirroring my movements, and the jump was fun and didn't require much lift. Turn around, jump, follow through. I had a long way to go if I was going to catch up to Stefan, but for what I had in mind, there wasn't any other choice. Any little thing I could do to increase my score and impress the audience was worth it. Vitya. Coach's bark was sharp, but I ignored him as I set up another, twisted around, and jumped. It wasn't a clean landing, but I managed to stay on my feet. It was only a matter of doing the drill enough times that the feeling became completely natural. Around, kick off with a pick, hop over the ice, then leg out for a beautiful landing. If I could nail this, then I'd move on to making it a double toe loop, all the way up to the quad. I could get a camel spin well enough, but it still took too long to mentally shift my perspective. I had to have it smooth. You're going to destroy your knee that way. Vitya. That was a risk. The impact of landing with all of that momentum was hard on the joints, but so what? My body belonged to the ice. And if skating didn't destroy me, ballet certainly would. The only ones who never make mistakes are those who don't do anything. And I was going to do something. Vitya. I can't hear you, coach. I tried a sit spin, but immediately went clockwise and aborted it with a spray of ice at my heel. Counterclockwise, counterclockwise, counterclockwise. I could do this. The double doors to the rink closed with an echoing click. It was hard to come in and out without announcing your presence, no matter how careful you were. I pushed myself into a counterclockwise camel spin so I could readjust my focus on how it was supposed to feel, then glanced over. Georgi said his hellos to our red-faced coach, then walked over to the bench to finish getting ready. Senior or not, he was way out of his league. I tried the sit spin again and nailed it, pulling myself low to the ground while keeping everything tight to maintain control of the speed. Hey, that's looking pretty good, called Georgi as he stepped onto the ice. Like Lamby eel, right? My mouth pinched into a little frown before I could help myself, and I straightened up once more, just to look a little taller. What did Georgi know about Stefan? Anyway, he was my idol, not his. Yeah, that's right. That's really hard to do. Are you going to be using it in this next season's program? I shrugged. Yeah, maybe. Oh, cool. Yep. I spun around and gathered more speed, trying the backwards toe loop again, and this time I nailed it. I just had to spend enough time getting used to the motion and switching back and forth. Georgi slid to where I was and stopped to watch, even though there was a lot of empty rink he could have been using. I ignored him and kept going, moving into another camel spin which at least got him to back off a little. But he stood here, still, just staring. Did you need something? Yeah, actually. He wrung his hands together, nervous energy wearing grooves in the ice beneath him. Do you want to come to my house for dinner sometime? My mother makes amazing stroganoff. Dinner? Stroganoff? I stopped skating to stare back at him. I'd never been asked to go to a rink mate's house before. Coaches, sure. Lots of times, but not one of the other kids. And though it was tempting, it was also suspicious. Revenge for the camping incident? Probably. Why? Because we got off on the wrong skate. And it could be fun? Georgi looked sincere. Maybe too sincere for it to be a trap. I folded my arms, watching him for any sign of wavering facade, but he just being his sort of nervous, smiley self. Please, Vitya? It's Viktor. Georgi. I huffed. What kind of stroganoff is it? Herring? What? No. It's beef. So not like my aunt's. Thank God. And going would give me a chance to see what the enemy's territory was like. That could be really useful. I guess I could come. Really? Georgi's smile turned bright and wide, and the nerves ebbed immediately. That's great. Okay. How does Wednesday after practice sound? My mother can pick us up. I shrugged. Sure. I guess. That's fine. Okay. He left me to my skating after that, looking pleased as could be. He was the champion of both junior nationals and junior worlds. Why should he care about me? It was still sunny out when I left the rink, which was typical for a St. Petersburg summer. Not quite the peak of our white nights, but close. I loved it, even with the crowded tourist traps all over the city. Public transportation was busier, on the bus and then on the metro, but that just meant more people to watch. And to watch out for me, too. My student pass let me hop onto any transport in the city and go wherever I wanted with few exceptions, and I had big plans for my newfound freedom. More museums, more one-day dance workshops, more trips to the zoo. Maybe I'd even go to the mall. I didn't have a lot of money, but I had squirreled away what was left of my winnings from the Junior Grand Prix. There were a lot of things I wanted to buy, but whatever it was, my gold-winning money needed to go towards something great. Getting home involved a bus, 2 metro transfers, and another bus to the stop closest to home. Then I'd walk the rest of the way. I'd lived downtown most of my life. Being able to explore the outer reaches of the city was a treasure. And Nico kept me company on the commute. Why, wait. He asked you to dinner? Me, yeah. Why? Is he gay? Me, I don't think so. He's had a ton of girlfriends. Me. Besides, I'm pretty sure it was his mama that put him up to it. Why? She's matchmaking. Miska. Me, no way. They probably just want to get a good look at the competition. Why? But I thought you said he was going on to the senior division. Me, still my rival. Why? So are you going? Me, yeah, I guess. Why? Have fun with your boyfriend. Georgi wasn't my boyfriend. I didn't want to date Georgi. Nico, though. Would he ever see me as anything more than a friend? I waited to text back until I was off the metro and on the last bus. There were less people the further we got from the epicenter of the city, so I actually managed to grab a seat. Head against the window, gaze fixed on my little cell phone. I racked my brain for anything to say that could turn this around. Me, you knows that'd just make you jealous, Nico. It was several minutes before he sent a text back. Why? Why? I know you like me more than him. I read and reread his texts 100 times before the bus came to my stop, and ambled off in a daze. What was I supposed to say to that? It was true, but it wasn't like I could just admit it. So my phone ended up in my pocket and I just focused on walking, hoping the breeze would cool my face. The city streets were wide, sidewalks stretching out alongside buildings like paved roads in a hedge maze that went on for miles. Since I was nowhere near the river, the streets were mostly empty this time of night. I watched the street signs as I walked, checking the map in my jacket pocket for reference every few blocks to make sure that I was still on the right track. In a few more days, I wouldn't even need to check. I could just run right home if I had to. Scattered above and between businesses were apartment buildings, each with one-way private entries, gated for security. The residential sectors were all off side streets, branching down blocks and through designated green areas. They were supposed to be parks, but they were no bigger than the length of the department stores that flanked them. I cut through one of them to save time, watching the record store sign up ahead to mark my heading. Around the corner was a line of shops that I'd definitely passed several times before. A barbershop, a convenience store, and an antique store at the end of the commercial strip. After that was just a long stretch of brick and concrete till the end of the block. The barbershop was empty, dark and curtained with its closed sign on the door. They were probably only open during normal business hours. The convenience store was open, though, as always, a 24-hour hole in the wall with overpriced milk and cigarettes. It wasn't anything like the cafe I loved at the academy, but it would work if I needed something on the way to the rink. The antique shop, sadly, was also closed. I peered through the shop front, gazing at the little ceramic figures barely tucked away in the shadows. An owl, a cat, dancing together. Pressed against the glass, I could just make out the details. They were precious. Perfect. I wanted to see them up close, but every time I'd come by, the door was locked with a closed sign on display. I checked the sign again, but there were no hours listed. Only a simple closed, come back tomorrow. But it never changed. Not even on the weekends. How did it stay in business if it was always closed? It didn't make any sense. I kept walking, abandoning the shop for the pale twilight. There'd always be next time. 10 blocks later, I turned the corner and searched for the side street that would take me home. BZZZ. A new text message. It wasn't like Nico to message me before I replied. Unknown. Hey, I just double-checked with Mother and Wednesday's great. Does that still work for you? Oh, it was Georgi. I added him to my contact list, then typed out a reply. Me, I'm not home yet. Second place. Okay, let me know when you get there. I looked at Nico's text again and wondered if he was worried about me getting home. Somehow I doubted it. Nico probably didn't care at all. When I got home, I talked to my aunt and uncle about going to Georgi's for dinner and they were elated. Finally, a friend for Vitya. They cried. I had friends already, like Nico. I didn't need Georgi's charity or my aunt and uncle's pity. But it was too late to turn back now. I texted my confirmation to Georgi and stole away to the library, where my aunt kept her elliptical machine. I liked not having to focus on ballet and classes while working on programs. But it was hard to get enough exercise in without the rigid schedule of the academy. An hour later and I was ready for bed, exhausted and still completely unsure of how to deal with Nico's text. Wednesday came and I spent the whole practice trying to ignore how excited Georgi was. Sasha couldn't stop snickering. He reminds me of someone. Who could it be? Shut up, Sasha. It's just so nice to see you getting a taste of your own medicine. I'd never been as annoying as Georgi, though, and I wasn't like Sasha, even at my worst. Georgi seemed happy as ever, though, eager to please and impress. When his mother picked us up from practice, she was full of questions and compliments. Questions for Georgi, that is, about how his progress was going and what coach had told him for the day. She was very invested. The compliments were for me. I loved your routines this past season, Vitya. Thanks. Your parents must be very proud. It wasn't worth explaining. Not to my enemy's mama. Yeah. He lives with his aunt and uncle, mother. Oh, she said, fingers tightening around the steering wheel as she forced a sympathetic smile. That's right. You already told me about that, sweetheart. Georgi shot me a sympathetic look. The kind that said, don't worry, I've got your back. I looked out the window to watch the city passing by. Georgi's house was huge. A lot bigger than my aunt and uncle's. And nicer, too. It wasn't crammed in with the other houses on the street. They had their own big yard and trees and an immaculate flagstone pathway to the front door. I should have known from his mama's car, but it only took a second to realize that there were people with money. I'll give you the tour, said Georgi, holding the door for me. You have a little while before dinner is ready, said his mama. I'll call for you. Okay boys? Sure. I just nodded, too overwhelmed to say anything else. The inside of the house was even more impressive. Everything was beautiful, neat and orderly with everything in its proper place. Georgi showed me around to his father's in-home office, which was way bigger and nicer than my uncle's, then the first-level bath, the enormous kitchen, the living room, and then upstairs to show off the bedrooms. It was almost like Lilia's house, except that everything felt spacious instead of too narrow. There were framed photos on the wall, and some tasteful pieces of art. Vases were set up in strategic places to add a bit of color against the taupe-colored walls. The furniture was leather, the carpets plush. Nothing was worn out. We're still unpacking the rest, Georgi explained as he showed me his room. I know we've been here almost a whole month, but it's a big process. Right, they'd only just moved in. It was easier to keep things maintained when they were new. Maybe in a few months, everything would look just as used and hodgepodge as my house. Matching towels didn't actually last in real life, did they? And Georgi's room was so organized. Maybe they had a maid. Oh, let me show you the backyard. I followed him back downstairs, mind drifting from one thought of luxury to the next. Soaking in one of those garden tubs was probably heaven. Bunny naps on those couches would be divine. And Georgi had his own window seat with a view to the yard he was taking me to, lined with soft, fluffy carpet. I could have sat on one of those for hours and read or drawn or just looked out at the woods, creature watching. The backyard was huge. Though it was fenced, it had enough trees in the back corner that it was like its own private forest. There probably wasn't much wildlife that came to visit, but that kept it pristine. He showed me the stone water feature, walked me through the miniature forest, and pointed out the patio and its hot tub. Insane. So what do you think? He asked, chest puffed and expression just a little too excited to reach his trademark cool persona. I shrugged, hands staying rooted in the pockets of my jacket. I like this little forest area. It's great, right? We're going to put a hammock up between these trees. A hammock in the trees. That would be the perfect napping spot. That's really cool. I had to admit it. I was impressed. Georgi was thrilled. Great. You can come over more if you want. I know we're rivals, but that doesn't mean that we can't be friends, too. Yeah, I guess. It was a trap and I wasn't going to fall for it. but there was no other answer to give. Great. We wandered a little bit in the foresty area, following the little path all the way through until it let out on the other side, then walked across the grass. Georgi explained some of the projects his dad wanted to do to enhance the space, but I was only sort of listening. Georgi really did have parents that cared. He had siblings, too, and money. He'd beaten me and, despite how cold I'd been, he was still nice. If he weren't so obviously and obnoxiously straight, he might even be cute. And I think we're going to get another dog later, too. Mother keeps talking about an Afghan or something. What do you think about those? They're pretty, I said, and nudged a mushroom in the grass with my shoe. I like dogs. I'd wanted one for a long time, but my aunt and uncle said they'd been there, done that, and weren't going to do it again. Especially since I spent most of the year at the academy, so the care of a dog would fall on them. I had no dogs. Georgi had one and was getting another. Yeah, I think so, too. They have such soulful eyes, like you can look into eternity. Kind of like with horses. I gave him a sideways glance, squinting. If I didn't know any better, I'd say he was making fun of me. But Georgi was gazing off into the distance with a wistful sigh. He was straight, all right, but still so gay. Instead of answering him, I followed the little trail of mushrooms, forcing him to follow after me. They were scattered here and there, but just a little ways up ahead, they were clumped together in a band around a patch of grass. A fairy ring. Georgi had a fairy ring in his backyard. Magic. He had magic right here. He didn't even have to go deep into the woods to find this. It was just there. Oh, you found the fairy ring. I unclenched my fists inside of my pockets, and took a deep breath. Yeah, looks like it. Georgi looked at me instead of the marvel in the grass, tensing again. Dad says he's going to mow them down, but they'll just grow back. It was true. They did that. Why anyone would chop them down in the first place, though. Georgi, do you believe in magic? I blurted out the question before I had a chance to really think it through. It was so stupid to admit something like that to an enemy, on his part and on mine. But it was too late. He frowned, regarding me with caution again. Why do you ask? Just wondering what you think about the fairy ring. Georgi debated for a moment, then said, I think it's cool. What do you think? Do you believe in magic or not? He shifted uncomfortably. Well, I don't think fairies made this. Ha, that would just be dumb, right? I clenched my fists again. It's not dumb. Huh? Look, I've read about this a lot. I get that they grow like that because of nitrate-rich soil. I'm not stupid. Georgi, I never said, but there's nothing that says that fairies can't be the ones that made the soil like that. Maybe that's just how magic works. Did you ever think about that? The tears came on far too quickly for me to stop them. And I didn't want to. I was frustrated. I was alone. There was nothing I could do that Georgi couldn't. And it made sense that Coach recruited him to replace me. He was a much better fit to represent Russia. Someone who was nice and practical and fit into traditional Russian values. I sucked in a breath and it came out as a sob. You don't have to be such an ass about everything. Georgi, I never should have come here. He stared, dumbfounded and helpless, mouth open with no words to fill it. Good. I clenched my jaw to try to hold in all of the horrible words and cries that wanted to come out, body trembling. Princesses were supposed to be strong, but I wanted to go home. Or better yet, to run away and get lost somewhere in the city. It didn't matter. I just needed to not be here. Not in front of Georgi and his perfect family. I didn't belong here. I didn't belong anywhere. It was no wonder that Nico didn't like me, that the other boys at the academy hated me, that I'd only gotten gold once in my entire skating career. I was more than useless. I was worthless, and crying in front of my rival was the worst mistake I could have possibly made. It was over. I would never recover from this. Victor. I shook my head, turning away from him and covered my face with my hands. My cheeks were burning, both from the tears and the heat of embarrassment. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Victor, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that. Really. I believe in magic. I just didn't want you to think I was dumb. I cursed under my breath, biting down hard on my lip. Perfect. Georgi was actually apologizing, even though he hadn't done anything wrong except be better than me. He was the good kid, and I was a terrible rinkmate and guest. Victor, please. Look, I can prove it if you want. Okay? I shook my head again, but held my breath when his mother's voice called from the back door. Gosha. Vitya, it's time for dinner. Georgi looked at me, then back at the house. Yeah, we'll be there in a minute, mother. Then he turned back to me, lowering his voice. What can I do? Victor, please don't cry. I was already crying, but his concern was sort of touching. It made me feel a little better and a whole lot worse at the same time. Just need a moment, I muttered. Then hiccuped. To Georgi's credit, he didn't laugh, just nodded and turned toward the house. Okay, I'll stand guard. I wanted to curse again. Why was he so nice? Why did I hate him so much? Why was I so pathetic? I had no answers, just misery. It took another 5 minutes for me to reasonably calm down and my face to not be so hot. I carefully wiped the tears away, taking slow, even breaths, and regained my composure. Georgi said nothing other than to ask if I was okay, and all I could do in reply was shrug. We went inside for dinner, and though I was pretty sure everyone knew I'd been crying, no one said anything about it. The stroganoff was good, even though I was so anxious that I couldn't eat much. Georgi hadn't lied about that. There was dessert, too, but I'd stopped paying attention long before that, just listened to the rest of his family converse about this and that, grades and summer holiday plans. I answered whatever question was directed to me, but with short, vague replies. Are you okay, Vitya? His mother asked. Yeah, sorry. Just really tired. As lame an excuse as it was the truth. His dad offered a reassuring smile. That's okay. I'll take you home whenever you're ready. I was ready. I was so ready. Georgi came along for the ride, sitting in the back of the car while I shared the passenger seat with my backpack and skates. They made small talk, mostly about how Georgi's parents had high expectations for him now that they'd relocated. You like Coach Feltzman, don't you? His father asked. I blinked at him, answering automatically. He's the best coach in the world. Good. It'll be a great season, won't it, Gosha? Yeah. When we got to my house, my smaller, less grand, faded paint house, the pair of them walked me to the door. I guess it was to make sure that I got in okay, but it was excessive. Plus, the moment my aunt saw them, she was making grand gestures of gratitude. Thank you for bringing my sweet nephew home, and promising to invite Georgi over for dinner next. We're so glad that he is a friend now. I don't remember him ever having one before. Georgi's father shared the sentiment while Georgi pushed a hopeful smile. Thanks for having me over, I said. My aunt's hands on my shoulders, her way of reminding me to be polite. Sure, Victor. Hopefully we can do this again soon. Again? I shrugged. I was so tired. So tired. As soon as they left, I went to bed, promising to relay all the adventures to my relatives after a good night's sleep. They let me go, but I wasn't sure if they believed me or not. Either way, it didn't matter. Nothing would change the fact that I was the real second place here, not Georgi.